Ever pondered how the geographical terrain of a region can impact a war? How about the rugged terrain of North Vietnam during the Sino Vietnamese War of 1979? Yes, today we're going to take a journey back in time to explore the intricate relationship between geography and warfare strategy. In this video, we'll delve into the Sino Vietnamese War of 1979, a conflict that spanned a brief but intense 1 month. But more specifically, we'll be focusing on the fascinating role that the terrain of North Vietnam played in this war. From towering mountain ranges to dense forests, North Vietnam's varied landscape posed unique challenges and strategic opportunities. The undulating terrain, coupled with their climate conditions, had an undeniable effect on the operations of the Chinese offensive. So are you ready to embark on this journey with us? As we delve into the chronicles of this war, let's first understand the geographical terrain of North Vietnam. The terrain of North Vietnam, a strategic player in the 1979 conflict, isn't your everyday landscape. The geographical features of this region are as diverse as they are challenging, and they played a significant role in shaping the course of the Sino-Vietnamese War. Let's start with the northernmost region of Vietnam, which is marked by its rugged mountains. These mountains, part of the larger Annamite Range, are not just steep but also densely forested, turning into a natural fortress. The thick foliage provides ample cover, making it difficult for an advancing army to spot the enemy or even navigate effectively. Next, we have the dense forests that extend beyond just the mountainous areas. The tropical rainforests of North Vietnam are a labyrinth of flora and fauna, providing a perfect hideout for guerrilla warfare. The dense vegetation makes it nearly impossible for large military groups to move swiftly or maintain clear lines of communication. Then there's the complex river system of North Vietnam. The Red River, the country's second longest, snakes its way through the region, accompanied by numerous tributaries. These waterways, while being a valuable resource, also pose significant challenges. They create natural barriers that are difficult to cross and can easily turn into strategic defensive points. And let's not forget the weather. North Vietnam's climate, marked by heavy rainfall and humidity, adds another layer of complexity. The rain can turn dirt roads into muddy traps, slowing down any land-based advance. The high humidity, on the other hand, can affect the morale and physical condition of the troops. In summary, North Vietnam's terrain is a formidable adversary in itself. The mountains, forests, rivers, and climate combine to create a challenging landscape that can hinder even the most well-planned military operation. The Chinese offensive during the Sino-Vietnamese War had to grapple not just with the Vietnamese army, but also with these geographical hurdles. With such a challenging landscape, the Chinese offensive had to grapple with more than just the Vietnamese army. The year 1979, the Chinese troops marched towards the border, unaware of the challenges the terrain had in store. As the first wave of soldiers began their advance, it was clear that this was no ordinary battlefield. The jagged mountains and dense forests of North Vietnam were not just obstacles, they were formidable adversaries in their own right. The Chinese offensive, initially swift and relentless, soon found itself grappling with the unforgiving landscape. The soldiers had to navigate steep cliffs and treacherous footpaths, all while remaining vigilant of the threat concealed in the natural fortifications. The terrain, it seemed, was a silent participant in the war, dictating the pace of the conflict. The forests muffled the sounds of approaching enemy, while the mountains provided a vantage point for Vietnamese forces. The thick vegetation and rugged topography were slowing down the Chinese advance, complicating their strategies and exhausting their troops. The mountains and forests of North Vietnam weren't just a physical barrier, but a tactical nightmare for the Chinese. As the war progressed, the terrain of North Vietnam became an unwelcome adversary for the Chinese. The rugged landscape, with its thick jungles, towering mountains, and winding rivers, served as more than just a backdrop to this historical conflict. It was a formidable foe, a silent participant in the battles that unfolded. One instance where the terrain played a pivotal role was during the Battle of Lang Son. The Chinese forces, accustomed to the flatlands and mild climates of their homeland, were ill-prepared for the harsh realities of Vietnam's mountainous terrain. The Vietnamese, on the other hand, had a deep understanding of their land and used it to their advantage. They set up complicated networks of tunnels and trenches in the mountainsides, creating a maze of fortifications that were nearly impossible for the Chinese to penetrate. In the dense jungles, the Vietnamese employed guerrilla warfare techniques, blending into the foliage and striking when least expected. The thick canopy provided them cover, allowing them to move undetected. The Chinese, struggling to navigate through the unfamiliar terrain, found themselves at a significant disadvantage. The rivers of North Vietnam too were used strategically. They served as natural barriers, slowing down the Chinese advancement. The Vietnamese forces, familiar with the river currents and hidden dangers, were able to launch surprise attacks from these waterways, further hampering the Chinese offensive. The terrain also had a psychological impact on the Chinese soldiers. The unfamiliar, harsh landscape, coupled with the Vietnamese's adept use of it, led to a decline in morale among the Chinese forces. They were fighting not just against the Vietnamese soldiers, but also against the land itself. The Vietnamese, in contrast, drew strength from their land. They knew every hill, every bend in the river, every hidden path in the jungle. This intimate knowledge of their terrain was a powerful weapon, one that they wielded with precision and effectiveness. The terrain, a silent ally of the Vietnamese, had indeed played a critical role in the course of the war. The war ended, but the stories of the challenging terrain live on. As the final echoes of gunfire faded away, the world saw the conclusion of a conflict that reshaped the geopolitical landscape of Southeast Asia. The Sino Vietnamese War of 1979 may have ended, but the role of the terrain in the outcome of the war was indelible. North Vietnam's rugged mountains, dense jungles, and hidden trails had proven to be more than just a geographical factor. They had been a silent yet formidable ally to the Vietnamese forces, providing natural fortifications and strategic advantages that heavily impacted the course of the war. The terrain had been a labyrinth, a protector, a weapon, and a decisive factor that challenged the mightiest of armies and strategies. In the grand scheme of things, the terrain of North Vietnam wasn't just a backdrop to the war, it was a formidable player in the Sino-Vietnamese conflict of 1979.